This is about money.
Ah, yes, money.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Keeping Your Money Show with Jamie Westenbarger. Retiring successfully rarely happens by accident, so don't leave something as important as your retirement to chance. Now you can sit down face-to-face with Jamie Westenbarger for a complimentary consultation or second opinion. Call Jamie right now at 888-98-MONEY to set up your appointment. That's 888-986-6639. And now, here are your hosts, Jamie Westenbarger and Bart Steinler.
All right, welcome back to the Keeping Your Money Show. I'm Jamie Westenbarger, joined as always by Bart Steinler. If you're just tuning in or you've been listening the whole time, we've been discussing universal life insurance policies and how they may not be what people think they are. We also talked about Social Security and how it can be very detrimental, especially for women sometimes, to take it as early as 62. If you missed any part of the show, you can find it on our website. Go to keepingyourmoney.com. You'll see the previous shows tabs there, and you can click on whatever segment or day you'd like to listen to. You can also find us on iTunes and podcast us there. Just go to itunes.com and search for the Keeping Your Money Show, and you'll see all those as well. I want to remind you, you can call us anytime. 888-98-MONEY is the number. That's 888-986-6639. Whether you want to call with a question, a concern, something you'd like to hear us talk about, or maybe you want to set up a personal consultation for Bart and I to sit down with you and figure out how you need to put your roadmap for your retirement together. We can do all of those things. Somebody answers the phone 24 hours a day. It doesn't even matter what time you call. Somebody will be able to help you out. So this was an interesting Reuters story. And I'll be honest with you, when I read it, I was shocked, actually, by the numbers that were being thrown around in this. And the general premise of this is more and more parents not wanting little Johnny and Susie to incur enormous amounts of student loan debt are actually themselves going out and getting Parent Plus loans to borrow the money for little Johnny and Susie and put themselves on the line to pay these loans back. Couple notable ones: Democratic presidential hopeful Martin O'Malley and his wife have borrowed $339,000 to educate the first two of their four children. I mean, you do some simple math, they're going to be in for just under $1 million when they get all four kids done. I mean, holy smokes.
So if he gets elected president, that pays, what, $200,000 a year? Or?
Well, him and Scott Walker, they list Scott Walker too, $220,000 for his two sons that are still in college. Between $100,000 and $120,000. That's not quite as bad, but still, these are large amounts of money that are being borrowed. And we've talked about this a lot on the show, Bart, from the standpoint of this idea that the only way you can go to college is to go into debt up to your eyeballs. And we've always talked about it from the standpoint of the kid. But clearly we need to address it from the standpoint of the parent as well, because this could be even worse for a parent because they may be out of their core earning years, or even if they are and they're in their current year earning years, this is when they should be putting the most money away from retirement, and they're paying $30,000, $40,000 a year in payments on, loans for the kids to go to college. That's crazy.
Yeah, and you wonder what kind of jobs are these kids going to get to be able to, pay back the loan or pay back their parents for that kind of money. Mm-hmm. Now, maybe some of the parents don't expect to be paid back. Maybe they have sufficient amounts in their retirement accounts. But the average, people that we deal with and we look at, they do not have the ability to take on $100 to $200 to $300 in debt 2 to 3 to 10 years prior to going into retirement. They need to be building up that retirement account. Now, what bothers me in addition about these things is that these loans it's another government program. People who know me know that I'm not real positive about programs that lend money to people without any real underwriting or sitting down with the people and figuring out, okay, we're going to loan you this money for this item. How are you going to pay that back? Is it going to be within your budget?
They don't really even bother to look at that. Like, you could never, if you were making $45,000 a year, you could never go get a $3 million mortgage. I mean, you'd never be approved, right?
No.
But yet, ProPublica, an investigative site that looks into this stuff, highlighted a woman living on Social Security disability who had $45,000 in loans for her child. You know, they highlight that the average Social Security recipient gets about $14,000 a year. So that's almost four times her annual income that she has in loans. I mean, she can't afford that.
No, and not to mention, if your annual income from Social Security is $14,000 a year,
you're barely keeping the lights on.
Yeah, you're not going. There's no way you're going to ever pay back a $45,000 student loan. So that's that's just ridiculous. And now the other thing is, with student loans, there's a lot of provisions in there that the loans get forgiven. Or if you take a job as a social worker for 10 years, then the loan will be forgiven.
Or deferred if you're unemployed.
Or deferred if you're unemployed.
Go back to school.
Or the payments can be set at a certain percentage of your income. Mm-hmm. With these loans, that is not the case. They're saying that the default rate on these things is going up at a pretty high rate, and that the government can, where is this here? The government has extraordinary powers for collecting, seizing tax refunds, getting wage garnishments, and going to court and taking a portion of the defaulted borrower's Social Security check, which are off limits to other creditors.
Now think about that. You're trying to do something good for your child. You've hampered your own retirement savings. You get into a pickle because you get laid off and you're in your 50s or 60s, so it's harder for you to get another job. And you end up coasting into Social Security, and you have this loan hanging over your head. Well, if you had a loan with MasterCard or on a car or anything like that, Social Security's off limits. They can't tap it. But in this situation, because they're government-backed loans, they can absolutely take a portion of your Social Security every month to pay back the loan.
And how many people have we seen in a situation where, they're cruising along, they're making good money, they've been saving up for retirement, and then they hit like 55, 56 years old and their job is eliminated. And so they end up finding another job and staying in the workforce, but they're making about, half or 60% of the money they used to make. And then
maybe less benefits,
so your insurance is higher. And then all of a sudden you couple that with the fact that you have this gigantic loan that you have to pay back, and then you could be subject to wage garnishments. That could bring that 50% pay cut down to a 25% pay cut.
Yeah, I mean it's a huge thing, and I think this goes back to this whole there's this generational movement where parents, whether they're in their 40s, 50s, or 60s, are finding this desire to pay for college to really be kind of a pretty significant thing. I mean, I have a daughter who's 16, as you know, and we're preparing for her to go off to college in a couple of years, and there's a lot of pressure on a parent to figure out how it gets paid for. And the last thing you want is to saddle your child with $100,000 of student loan debt. But I think you also have to look at it from this standpoint. I mean, they're going away to college because they're mature enough to handle that decision. That means they're also obviously an adult because they've turned 18. Some of this is going to have to be on their shoulders. And that doesn't mean necessarily loans. It means understanding there are other ways of doing college, whether that's, community college for a couple years, whether that's you go for a semester, you take a semester off, whether, there's a number of different things that a student can do to reduce the cost. Living on student loans and just worrying about paying all that back someday is never a good strategy. And then when you flip the table on that and you make it about the parent doing that, when they don't have, these giant larger income prospects later on, it's even worse. It's definitely worse.
You're actually doing a multi-generational slaughtering of your family's financial future.
Yeah. No, that's a great way of putting it. In I'll tell you, here's an interesting way to look at it when you put it like that, Bart. It made me think of it this way. So let's say that instead of getting a loan for your kid, you continue to contribute to your retirement plans. You continue to build up your own retirement. You retire one day happily. You do what you want to do in retirement, and then you die and leave a little something to your children. And that during that time, little Johnny or Susie has gone to college, whether they've gotten loans or not gotten loans. They've gotten their degree. They went out into the world, got their career, and they started, saving their own money. they will be in a much better place than if you paid for college that they may or may not have finished at the expense of your own retirement, and now at 70 need their help to pay for your prescriptions, to pay for your housing, to pay for your medical expenses, to pay for just your general living expenses. Mm-hmm. So in trying to, quote unquote, do a favor for your children and put them in a better position, you actually could put them in a worse position because you've put yourself in such a detrimental place.
I think we've used the example before, like when they're giving you the demonstration on the airplane and the oxygen things come out, that you're supposed to put your own oxygen first and then help the person next to you. The same thing with retirement. You have to first get your own retirement planned and in order prior, and then if you can afford after that, you can help your children through college.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you have to get your stuff in order. And I don't think, I feel like we talk about it a lot, but I just think it's so important because I think we're getting the message out there that the norm is good parents pay for college. And I think the norm is good parents make sure they're not going to have to rely on their kids in retirement. And then if there's some extra money, they help pay for college.
Yeah. And the paradigm has changed from college, costing $20,000
right,
to costing $120,000. That shifts the paradigm.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, coming up, we're going to talk about a Detroit Lions receiver for doing a really good thing financially, which, athletes never get credit for. We're going to discuss it right here on the Keeping Your Money Show.